Incoming. That's what it feels like right now. It feels like there are constant threats coming at us. In Los Angeles, there are the ongoing threats of the wildfires, also in outside of San Diego, constantly. And then the Trump administration has already signed well over 200 executive orders. And so we are juggling the threats. And so when I think of who I want to go through the apocalypse with, I want to think about who's going to keep us fed, who's going to keep us funny, and who's going to keep us alive. That's what the third thing, the alive thing. Welcome back to Punching Up. We are in different times now. And so it is important that we talk to a disaster expert, because it is one disaster after the other disaster after another disaster. We are juggling multiple disasters, and we have to be able to get through this moment without losing our minds, because that is what Republicans want us to do right now. That is what MAGA wants us to do right now. And I'm just not here for it. I don't have the time and energy to lose my mind over these things. What I want to do is use my energy to figure out how we fix things. So to that end, I had to call in our disaster expert. She's everyone's disaster expert. She wrote the book, The Devil Never Sleeps. Juliette Kayyem. She's an expert in homeland security, crisis management,
Hi.
disaster preparedness. Hi.
Hi.
Help
I love
us.
this. I
Help
love
us.
the you want to go through the apocalypse with me. You definitely want to go through the apocalypse with me. You do not want to go through an airport with me. I turn into airport mom and get cranky and start yelling at children, some of them not even my own. So, but the apocalypse, I'm there for you. I promise. How are ya?
And I've got the jokes. I'm good. I feel like we need 10 go bags, and we're not going to actually need airports, because they're all going to be grounded, because Trump is going to put in completely inept people to run the FFA and everything else. And so we're actually going to have to flee with wagons, with like old school Oregon Trail style.
Rockets. I think it's the age of rockets. I think we're spending, Elon and all the billionaires and their rockets, because there's not enough problems on Earth. But no, there's no exit plan. We're staying put. We live another day. Fight the good fight.
I mean, okay, so live another day, fight the good fight, but we've got a lot of disasters going on right now.
Do.
And so I don't even know what you want to talk about first.
Well,
are we going to talk about
let's start with pacing, because I think a lot of people after Monday are like, that was a lot of executive orders. Like, I know, a lot. And I'm like trying to stick to my lane, and then like something comes up. And so, I've been thinking a lot since the election about, especially someone in my field, sort of like bad things happening and stuff, is like, what's like, how do I find that space between tuning out and freaking out? Like, what's that space? And I think like that's where people should focus their energy, because the swinging, the back and forth and everything, and whatever your issues are, whatever your equities are, and if it's everything, then you still need to you need to be purposeful. And so I just gave a lecture on this, so I'm going to use disaster management for the age of Trump. So like in disaster management, when something bad happens, we have a colleague has described it as the 3 questions, and it's really right. So like something, like you hear something happens, and so it's what, so what, and now what. So the what is in fact happening. There's so much noise. He says this, doesn't do this, doesn't say this, but does this. Like, what in fact is happening? Because then it's like, okay, well, you don't have to, you respond to every time the man sneezes, right? So the second is, so
unless it's on the Constitution, because
right.
I feel like he's
right. No. I mean, but it's a little bit like, okay, like that, we'll come back to that, because I think it like, okay, so what is, how does it, what's its impact? Because there's going to be things that like, he does that are horrible and gruesome and whatever, but does it have an impact on things? So like he just pardon some guy who was like ran some drug infested website. I'm forgetting what his name
Oh,
is.
the Silk Road
The
guy.
Silk
The
Road
Silk
guy,
Road.
right? Okay, that's
Yeah.
annoying. It's like whatever, and like, but the consequences of that are insignificant to say the consequences of letting the Proud Boys out, right? So it's like you're gonna just have to
Mhm.
focus, like that's like
We have to
and then
triage
treat right. But also,
okay.
but this so what? Like some of this stuff is just dastardly, but it's like okay, that's it's like it, the consequences are limited, and then the now what is sort of what can I do um, to sort of respond or use my in your case, my case, platforms or whatever else to sort of guide people to the okay, well now what? So like the Constitution is one of them. Like this case, his executive order on birthright citizenship. Like, so what did he do as an executive order that apparently redefines the Constitution? Okay, so what that matters, right? Because you can't do that. But the now what is like, I don't really think about it that much because the now what is this is going to be in litigation for years. So it's like it's not going into effect, right? It's just going to be some executive orders only impact executive branches. They're not the law of the land. So he says I'm ending birthright citizenship, and it has it's not self-executing. And so, let the attorney generals run with it. And so then I'm sort of like, okay, well, they've got that. Like, so some of it is just how is this really going to unfold? We know this is really going to unfold not until a Supreme Court decision, which could be years off.
So if I don't have control over the outcome, direct control, instead of freaking out about it, I should do something like rearrange my living room to give myself a sense of
I mean,
control.
well,
Or
you're in
what?
LA. I mean, no, agency isn't, that's tuning out. Agency is they're like, for example,
Okay.
on the immigration front, right? Well, or the disaster front, there's going to be lots of things to support and do to help localities, individuals, NGOs through this process. Like if you're a lawyer and you're sitting on the sidelines, um, uh, shout out to all the lawyers, like get in line. There's going to be needs for lots and lots of immigration lawyers or disaster management lawyers. Like, so there's things that can be done in the terms of the now what, rather than, well, I'm going to, just yell about how horrible he is. Like we know, like, I sort of feel like that narrative this is me post-election, because I've thought about it a lot. Like that narrative, I'm not giving up on it, but that narrative didn't stick. And the narrative that the narrative of how horrible and whatever he is didn't stick. So part of it is Biden and waiting too long. Part of it is, but part of it is we just need to tell the story of how government does work in people's lives. I think we sort of fail to do that. And I think like people, like I think LA where you live, like it matters. People won't admit this, but I do admit it. Like amongst all the hoopla and the craziness and the DEI attacks during the LA fires and everyone losing their heads and stuff like that, like, I think that we will view this as a strong response to an almost impossible fire. I really do. I mean, if you just look at the body count, Los Angeles, what is it, 25 now? Los Angeles was on fire, and you only lost,
Still on fire.
no, it's still on fire, but you're getting rain. And so there's a bad alert outside of LA, but you're getting rain this weekend, which should settle this round. It doesn't solve the long-term problem, but you sort of think about like, okay, over 100 people died in Paradise, over 100 people died in the Maui fires. Like that's something went right. We'll figure out what went wrong. So I
actually have a question about that because when is it too soon? Because you had all these armchair experts trying to diagnose what was happening with the fire when the fire were raging.
Yeah.
So you have half of LA in crisis mode,
Yeah.
and you've got people online saying, oh, well, they need to just rake the forest, or the water ran
Yeah.
out of the reservoir because of X reason, and not really realizing that people on the ground weren't interested
Reading
in any of
Twitter.
that. People on
Yeah.
the ground.
But they also, that stuff is so relevant. I mean, it was so hilarious because like, this is like where, my authoritative voice, knowing this stuff and having written about it, I visited Paradise. I've done a lot of work in fire and mitigation. Like, I did a documentary on Paradise. Like, I mean, it's just like sitting and just like me, just like having fun, trolling these armchair specialists. But some of them were also like Democrats sort of sometimes can lose their mind, like they're like all these, there was a rumor, or there was a reality that if you don't know how it works would have looked stupid. So the reality was that when Oregon sent a bunch of fire trucks to California, they have to go through a safety review. So everyone's like, oh, the regulations in blue state, and this is so stupid. And even someone like Nick Kristof, who should know better before getting on a bandwagon he doesn't know about, was like, this is outrageous regulations. We should really think about it. And anyone who has ever done disaster management was like, that is the necessary precondition for, for memorandums of understanding or for mutual aid agreements, because you don't want to send in trucks to protect people that may not be adequate for what you need them for. There's all sorts of different types of fire trucks. These reviews take
from what I
10
understood,
minutes.
you said
10 minutes. Yeah.
It's a standard operating procedure, right? Like it's like getting in a car and buckling your seatbelt.
And remember,
everybody does it. But
mutual aid is a payment system too. So if you don't do it, then insurance won't cover whatever. Anyway, it was such a non-problem and everyone got on it. And it was one of those things where you just realize, thank God no one in a disaster reads social media. But it is, there's one thing to comment on the policies that got us to this moment, which I think that's fair game. The moment there's a gun shooting, I think it's fair game. Los Angeles, I think it's fair game in terms of like, how did we build Los Angeles, whatever. But the idea that you're going to judge the response during the response generally means you don't have all the facts. And as I assess now, it's not over, but the acute risk to individuals is over. I'm sorry, that's not fair. The acute risk to large swaths of residential areas is over. One hopes, and that holds. Then some, people who do research can look at it and go, okay, but let's start from this not good, because you wish no one dies, but like 25, that's incredibly small. Now it may go up, homelessness, those without homes and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be.
And yet everybody is trying to politicize this. And now that we have this new administration, I believe Trump is planning on visiting on Friday. DEI. Did DEI cause the wildfires, Juliette? Like these are the questions. These are the conversations that are being had. And one of my favorite sayings is, if they can get you asking the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers.
The answer, right?
And so, gravity's rainbow, Thomas Pynchon.
But that's also. I mean, I don't have an answer to it, but it is. They want our attention. This is when I said the what, so what, now what. They want our attention, in the sense of, and one of the things they cannot handle, I believe, is not caring what they think. I mean, it's hilarious. Like, I mean, and also, I don't know about you, but I'm on social media less, like whatever. The world is changing, and I'll change too, in terms of the engagement and stuff, and try to reach the people that matter for the purposes that I want to reach them. But like, my value add on, getting upset about this, and this is just, I mean, some people are good at that. I'm telling you personally, like, people are always like, how do you pace the rage? And I say part of it is, is that you don't disengage, but you engage in a different way. And I think that the times are going to kind of demand that.
I agree, and I think a lot of things right now people are thinking about and wondering about is the climate crisis is obviously
Yeah,
very real. So
yeah,
it's snowing in Florida, and not
I
just like a
know.
little bit of snow,
A
a
lot of
lot of
snow.
snow,
Yeah,
a lot like so much snow. And in LA, we have climate
yeah,
refugees, right? There's climate
yeah,
refugees within our own borders.
yeah,
Can you kind of talk to people about what that looks like to have climate refugees
yeah.
within our own borders, but then also because like everybody in LA is scrambling to try to find housing.
Right.
Can you tie that then to the migration and the immigration issue? Because
Yeah,
this isn't just a U.S. issue; this is a global issue.
yeah, yeah.
People are
No, I
running
mean,
out of
I think
places to run
it's
to.
been right. It's been a huge issue. I mean, in terms of, do you recognize climate refugees as refugees? We do not in the United States, and that predates even Trump. Like that was the asylum was reserved for a certain type of exodus, but it is happening across the world. And while we think about water and fire, I mean, I think heat is going to make large swaths of the world uninhabitable over time. So I don't mean to put this, but while we focus on mitigation, and we're going to focus in ways that are different now, once again, got to adapt to an administration that is uh, sort of not smart enough to see reality in the face, right? I mean, I mean, either they're evil or they're stupid. You would think that they would want to just be
Or
called
both.
stupid, yeah. Like, so I'm going to call them stupid, and let others. But is look, you're going to get a couple things are going to drive the mitigation side, and then I'll get on to the response. One is that's where the dollars are. Like, you can talk about fossil fuel all you freaking want, and Donald Trump can talk about an energy emergency. We are producing more energy, more diverse energy from more diverse energy sources than any other country in the history of humankind. And we're doing well, and lots of people are making lots of money. That market is not going to close because the Secretary of Interior wants to drill in a few places in Anwar, like whatever. Like, in other words, so the market is finding this diversity. The market, I mean, I just want to remind people, when Trump opened up, I think this might be my next column for the Atlantic, when Trump opened up Alaska for drilling. So the process is that you open up the leases and then people bid on them. There were 3 bids for 17 leases. Only, in other words, there were more leases than there were bids. And one of them was the state of Alaska. So the market is not running to this. So that's going to be just, so for whatever he says, the market is it. And when I say the market, I mean it, whatever, it's just they're looking at the stability of what is successful, and the market would do it. The other is you're going to get subnational activities that we haven't seen before. California will send a delegation to Paris. I mean, Massachusetts may do the same. You're gonna see subnational activity that won't be the same as national activity, but it's not nothing. That's on the mitigation side. On the response side, this is what I tell my students is go local. I mean, all my students are like, oh, national security. That's what I was like, go work for mayor, go work for governor if you want to invest in it. And when people think all is lost, what I want to remind people is, so what does it mean to rebuild, like in Los Angeles or whatever? So I spend a lot of time visiting disasters areas. Do you know what state or what community in what state has the strongest in terms of the disaster side residential building codes? It's the reddest state of all. It's Oklahoma. It's a community called Moore, Oklahoma, very red. I went there, Trump signs everywhere. Like it is a place, but it won't call it climate change, but it knows that the winds, in that case, the tornadoes are coming. And blue states like California, as we're reading now, haven't been as great on adaptation, not for bad reasons. They just want to be consumer friendly. They want to make sure that there's not racial inequities. They're looking at things, but they haven't always been the most forward looking in compelling people to live a certain way. And so hopefully we'll start to see some changes from California. Republicans say we're going to put conditions on it. And as a Democrat, I'm like, yes, let's put conditions on it. Because I do think, like, if we put conditions on how Los Angeles is going to rebuild in a good way, right? The kind of conditions that you'd want, right? Environmentalists would be happy, homeowners would be happy, insurance companies would definitely be happy. It's just that we know the conditions that the Republicans want to put on it. But I think Democrats should be all for conditions.
Yeah, but are these the right kind? Because it feels like the conditions that they want to put on it have nothing to actually do with improving the situation. But tell me if I'm wrong here.
Like, no, it's hard to know. I don't actually. They've been very coy about it. If I were California, I would hand a list just to get there first. So this is like how we have to, like, in other words, let me finish that sentence. They want to, they're governing by troll. Well, instead of, maybe we can be responsive, right? In other words, you're saying conditions. They're not specific on what the conditions are. No one knows what the conditions are. There's actually some really compelling things that Democrats should want that would tie the recovery dollars so that people are required to act in a certain way. What's happened before is recovery dollars, everyone fights. So think of Sandy, before it's just like Sandy is, everything gets flooded out. Lots of people die. Lots of people died in Sandy. And because it's New York, powerful New York, because it's Obama, and the relationship, and it's Schumer, right? It's like, just write checks. And so everyone writes checks, and that's fine. And everyone's happy because they get their checks. And then you look, are we good on sound? Because I just got to, okay.
Oh, we're good on sound.
Okay, good. And then you look around 10 years later and you're like, how could people have rebuilt there? Like, this is crazy. So I actually think, like, if Democrats could, part of it is because, it's local politics and everyone wants to make their constituency happy. I sort of view disaster management as a way, or these disaster funds as a way for the left to force its own hand, like in a good way. Like, in other words, okay, if you're going to build here X, Y, and Z, or you've got to build 10 feet back, or in some cases we'll pay you not to live here again, which is a small program at FEMA, but probably not likely to last much longer.
Speaking of FEMA, I'm concerned about the capabilities and the qualifications. When you talk about DEI, when you want to talk about these unqualified folks, who is this guy, this Navy SEAL guy that supposedly...
I was asking around today. So remember, you're young, but everyone, your viewers may be younger, but remember Hurricane Katrina. The head of FEMA was Michael Brown, who had run the equestrian what is it, like the equestrian,
like the horses?
The World Equestrian Foundation. He was in charge of FEMA during Hurricane Katrina. And after 10 minutes after Hurricane Katrina, everyone's like, where's FEMA? And then they're like, who runs FEMA? And it wasn't, and he eventually got fired. So I'm going to give advice to this Hamilton guy. There's only two paths for you. One is don't take the permanent job. He's acting right now, or you're getting fired, because the president doesn't get fired. So remember this. I always say this to my students, because I was like, if you don't want to get fired, don't be in this field, because we're expendable. Presidents don't fire themselves for bad jobs. They're firing you. So that's my little advice to the unknown guy who may run the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I joke about this only because I've actually seen this story before, and this story does not end well for Mr. Hamilton. It might not end well for a lot of people, but it certainly does not end well or I guess his first name is Hamilton. I don't even know his name. No one's ever seen him before.
Yeah, it's Cam. I think it's Cameron, and he's. I
Cameron.
was like, it sounds like an ice skater. He sounds to
Yeah,
me. He sounds like a professional figure
yeah.
skater. Like
Cameron
that's when I
Elliott.
hear that, I'm
But
like, that's must be what he does.
this is what, and what's interesting about his bio, and this is what's I mean, this is true of the sort of toxic masculinity that's coming out of this. That's part of this administration. Hegseth being sort of the best of them, right? This, I said, we're in a, we're in an era in which toxic masculinity uh, becomes a proxy for qualifications, right? Like, in other words, totally unqualified. Oh, but I'm toxically masculine, so I'm going to be. And this guy, the fact that they're promoting the fact he's a former Navy SEAL, like, what, like, this is a civilian emergency management agency, like, but they always think that the military is the solution to everything. That's what this president thinks. He has no, but he will say that's not true. But whatever this guy's name, whose name I can't remember already, I'm giving him my personal advice, which is, I don't know,
We'll just call him
just
the figure skater.
take another job, get a job at Treasury, you'll get rich after. But this job, this only ends bad for you.
So the experts are there though. Like we have the expertise. We have people like you. We have people. So is the problem the fact that we don't respect expertise? Is it, or is it also the behavioral change? Because people want to return to their communities, right? So
Right.
a fire could ravage an area, and part of being human is the communities that
Absolutely.
we form. So this idea that we're going to disperse the community of the
Yeah.
Palisades or Altadena, like there's so much history in both of
Yeah.
those places.
Yeah.
So is it, what do we have to change how we think about community? Do we have to change how we think about what we're willing to, because the
Yeah.
world, the climate's doing what the climate's doing.
Yeah.
So if we
No,
want it to be livable,
right. I think we have to know, but I think, what I was saying at the beginning, like, we need to tell a story of how government can work, right? So I think one of the things is we sort of got, after like the LA fires, people are talking about, like, better, better LA, coming up from the ashes, and like resiliency and whatever. And like, people feel that, but they don't really know what it means. And I think what we need to do is, like, describe what it actually means to build more resilient. So for fires, we know what that means, right? In terms of what kind of materials you build with, what kind of shrubbery do you have around your house, and what kind of structures do you have that might catch on fire. It doesn't mean it will stop it. Remember, in a fire like this, the goal isn't necessary to eradicate it immediately, because that's really hard. You're just trying to slow it. And so there are ways to build to decrease what's called the fire ladder. And so you want to find a way in which you're slowing it down, because this is, this, in a crisis, like, you don't have time. So you're just trying to slow it down. And I think there are ways to build that way. Paradise is rebuilding that way. And I think we need to just, begin to tell that story. Oh, look, there I
I
am
think
on
that's
Blue Sky.
yes, yeah, yes. Find Juliette on the Blue
I'm
Sky.
trying to be on
We're
everything more, but I'm sort of, I get no pleasure from social media anymore. I just, like, I used to learn
neither do
things and
I.
stuff. Yeah, so I figure I'm not taking a break. I call social media my humble brag now. Like, anytime I have an article or a CNN hit, or I'm going to have an article in the Atlantic later this week, like, anytime I have anything that's like me, I'll put it out there. But like, I don't engage in any way. So it's like, social media for me has just become one long humble brag.
Yeah, I like it to find people, and then we can connect offline and rebuild that way. And I am so grateful that you were with us tonight. I like what you just said about slowing it down, slowing
Yeah.
down the fire, because I think it's a perfect metaphor for also slowing down the fire, the dumpster fire that is Donald Trump. Like, we're
Yeah.
not going to be able to stop the burn, but by building community, by building stronger structures, just running with this metaphor here,
Yes.
we
Good.
can hopefully slow that disaster
Slow it.
as well before
Yeah.
it just burns through the
Yeah. Yeah.
entirety,
Look, I
the
mean, you're
entire
not
fabric of the United States and
right.
everything we hold dear.
Exactly. The crash landing has already occurred, and now you're just trying to, in disaster managers, are just trying to extend the runway. Like, we're not going back. We're only going forward. Yeah.
God, I
So,
wish we could go back though.
but
God,
I know
I wake up every morning still. Like
I
I
know
was like, I don't know how long
it's
we're
still
allowed to
early
be
days.
in
No,
shock,
it's still early
but
days. Right. Right.
yeah. So
What?
that's
What?
I
So what? Now what?
please check out the book.
Please
I need
do.
you to do a second book that's called not only does the devil never sleep, the devil's up doing crack cocaine all night long and on a 365 bender. Like that's the
Yes.
sequel
Okay, good.
because
That's
and
good.
he brought his
No,
friends.
this is the book that keeps on ticking. So I don't know if I should be happy or sad about sales these days, but I'm happy. So please buy.
Buy Juliette's book. I've read the book,
Buy. Thank
and
you.
it will help you be prepared for mitigating disasters in your own life. And so, thank you so much for being with us, Juliette. Follow her on social media, but just for the humble brag, not for the engagement. And
Thank you.
we will we'll see you at the next disaster, I guess.
Okay, great. Wonderful.
Oh well, okay, wonderful. She had to run off to try to save us, guys. I don't know what to tell you. This week has been absolutely batshit crazy, insane, and I am incredibly good at managing the influx of things. And I want to give you a trick on how I do that. When a news story comes out, and everybody messages me about every news story. Like everybody in my personal life, they're like, "Did you see this?" And I'm like, "I am perpetually online. I see everything before you send it to me, but thank you for sending it to me." And what I do is when something gets sent to me, uh, I look at it from an analytical perspective. Because I already knew it was all coming, right? Because I read Juliette's book. And so I like to know things. I never like to bury my head in the sand. I like to know what's coming. And so when it comes, I go, oh, okay, check the box, right? Like that's the bingo card. Obviously, the things that were not on my bingo card were the fires hitting so close to home. But because I had checked so many of the other things, like it didn't. I'm not going to say it didn't phase me because I was definitely in shock for quite some time. But my point is, we absolutely can get through the next 4 years, and it is going to be through building community. That is what we can control. And I do rearrange my furniture, by the way, to give myself a sense of control in a world full of chaos. I will just put a chair over here and a bookcase over here, and it makes me feel empowered. And so there are always things that we can do to trick our brains to feel empowered, and that's one of them. And it helps us approach crises and problems in our own lives from a more productive standpoint. And so, in this time of absolute fucking colossal shit fuckery day in and day out, which it's going to be, I highly urge you to not constantly check the news. The news is bad. It's bad. That's all you need to know. The news is very, very bad. And instead, use that energy to connect with your friends, the people in your life who are hurting. Reach out to your strong friends, reach out to your sad friends, have a coffee, do all of those things, and start asking yourselves, like, what is it that I want to get out of this one precious life? Because for me, I know I just want to see people evolve and eventually get to the point where they realize that if you're not a billionaire, this system needs to be, you know, tweaked a little bit. Tweaked a little bit. I'm still waiting for these folks to realize that their prices aren't going to go down, and they don't actually care that their egg prices aren't going to go down because they just want to have somebody to blame for their lives not being as wonderful as they feel their life should be. And so Trump gives them that scapegoat. Trump can say it's the immigrants, it's the trans people, it's the this. And so they don't give a shit about it. The eggs could be $20 a carton, and they'd be like, well, at least I can say that my life is this way because of that. So, guys, buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride over the next several weeks. So take care of yourselves, hydrate, work out, connect with friends, get enough sleep, learn how to do deep breathing exercises, all of the things. Learn how to meditate. I'll see you next week. I'm Maya May. This has been Punching Up. I will see y'all soon.